I started from nothing, never knew where my next meal was coming. But I transform my life, I stay one step ahead. Mindset of disruption, I own the edge. This is the ThrillCast, where I bring the wisdom you need. Everyone is selling knowledge, I give mine away for free. I'm as real as it gets, you either love or hate me. Best believe I'm major league. Bill Hynes, that's me. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the ThrillCast. And today we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time, and he really needs no introduction in the racing world, but I'm going to give him one. It's Matthew Brabham. He's the only three-time Stadium Super Truck champion. He's a USF 2000 champion, a Pro Mazda champion. He'll say it differently because he's from Australia. He's an Indy Lights winner. He's raced in the Indianapolis 500, and he's recently just raced in one of the most prestigious races in the entire world, the 24 Hours of Daytona. Rolex probably would like to say the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Actually, I wore my Apple Watch. Sorry, Rolex. I didn't wear one of my Rolexes today. But, Matty, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back. And how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah, no Rolex for me either at the moment. So, obviously didn't win the race. But, it was an incredible experience, and it's good to see you again, mate. You right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you didn't lose the race either, and anyone that goes into that race, how grueling it is, and obviously you and I were teammates on a 25-hour race, and so I kind of know what you're going through, but the stakes weren't as high. I think at the end of the 25 hours of Thunder Hill, I think we had like hot dogs and beer and pizza, so that was the and that little piston cup type of trophy we got, but. Which was plastic. But besides the point, very fun race. Our good buddy Richard McIntosh shows up with the Prevost, $2 million Prevost bus, and, that was a good time. So we got to do that again. But for those out there, tell us a little bit about your experience with the 24 hours leading up to it, like how you got the call to be on the team. Obviously there's 4 classes. The GT Pro? Was it the LMP2, the GTD Pro, and the GTD?
Yeah, it was a long time kind of in the making in terms of getting the opportunity. The race team is called AO Racing, and Gunnar is an old-time race car driver too, and he's been in the 24 hours many, many times, and he's kind of managing the team and running it. And we got in contact last year because they actually had some conflicts between racing WEC in Europe and also IMSA in the States, and so I kind of got the call up to be the reserve, and nearly replaced some of their guys during the year. And so I was just kind of with the team, and it's kind of crazy, but a lot of the guys on the team are Australians and crew guys from V8 Supercars, and so I knew a lot of those guys as well. And so I just knew a lot of people on the team, and it was a new and upcoming team. And obviously they kind of became famous through the Rexy livery and the dinosaur GT3 car. And I did a couple of test days with them last year, and was just kind of with the team in almost like a similar role to how I was with Andretti, in terms of just being like a help and a reserve. And because it all went so well, when they announced the LMP2 program, it all just kind of worked out for me to slot in right there, because I was actually doing some LMP2 stuff with some other teams. So, it was a really cool opportunity to get the call up with those guys, and then we obviously started getting ready for the Daytona 24, which we just completed. So it was kind of like a long time in the making, and it's a relatively new team, but they've got quite a lot of notoriety just through their crazy liveries. And our LMP2 car is a dragon, a purple dragon, and its name is Spike. And obviously they have the other car running still, which is the GT car, which is Rexy, which is a dinosaur, which is T-Rex.
So I really, really think, and as you know from my past iterations in companies, we love the branding. We love the marketing aspect of it. Heck, if I could have grid girls again, we're gonna do that. I mean, you're like you obviously like the grid girls in the past, not now, in the past.
Yeah, getting married to one actually. Yeah, but no, it's yeah, it's really cool. Motorsport needs some fresh flavor. It's kind of it's been around for a long time, and it's hasn't changed much. It's got a lot of history and legacy, but yeah, you need to add some flavor in there and spice it up, and get the younger generation interested. And yeah, it's crazy with our cars. When we show up to the grid, it's all kids, and they're wild. And we have mascots that are inflatable, and they're running around and getting photos with them. And yeah, it's really cool, and it's a kind of fun and cool team to be a part of. Obviously, they want to do well and they're serious, but no, they've done a great job with promoting their team, and it's really cool to be a part of. So I've definitely had a lot of fun with the guys, and it's yeah, it's pretty special to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, I was expecting that, like, during in between your stints after you raced, like, you did a quadruple stint, 4 hours overnight or something, that you then come out of the car and just jump into a Spike or Rexy suit and start running around. I'm sure, in the heat it might not smell too well, but you'll figure that out.
Yeah, maybe at one point throughout the year I'll get in the Rexy or the Spike suit. I don't know. Luckily, I get to wear the driver's suit at the moment, so I don't get the delegation of that job just yet.
Yeah, the driver's suit's definitely the better drive. So tell me about the race, like leading up to it. Obviously, you guys qualified 7th. Your teammates in the GTD Pro, they qualified on pole, so that was impressive effort from the team. So, I mean, and as you know, in a 24-hour long-distance race or, any type of endurance race, 6-hour, 12-hour, it really doesn't matter where you qualify. It really doesn't. It's such a long time and changing. So you guys at 7th and pole, obviously you put yourselves and the team in a great position to have a good result.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it was. I mean, the race was. It was so much fun, and obviously we started off quite well. The team with Rexy, which is the other car, which I wasn't driving the other car, but all part of the same team. We're in the same. We share the same pit box and everything, and pit lane, where we do the pit stops. So we have to kind of coordinate with them, and we're always on the radio with those guys. But yeah, they did a great job in getting the pole for Daytona, which is, obviously it doesn't mean anything, but it's still cool. If you're on the pole for Daytona or even the Indy 500, it doesn't mean anything because the race is so long, but it's just a cool accolade. And it's good PR because it's kind of similar to the 500 where you qualify the weekend before. So the whole week leading up to the race, you can kind of capitalize on the marketing there too, as if you're starting on the pole. And it was really cool because the team, as I said, they're a pretty new team, and that was their first pole position. And to be at a race like the Daytona 24 was awesome for them. And then in the Spike side of things, we were 7th, which was quite good. We're kind of in the middle of the pack. PJ qualified the car, the bronze driver qualifies, and yeah, it was a good kind of job from them as well.
So is that how that works? Like, I was wondering why, like, a silver or somebody like, so in across the whole LMP2 class, the bronze driver has to qualify the car. Is that like the rule?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least in our side, the bronze driver qualifies and starts the car, and that's required. And PJ is the bronze driver on our team. I'm the silver, and then we have two gold drivers, which is kind of like an FIA thing that they categorize the drivers. And I'm pretty lucky to be a silver because I was gold.
You're not a silver. How'd you do that? You're not a silver. So
yeah. So, and then the other team is in the GTD Pro class, and that's a full factory team against all the factory cars, the GT cars. So they have all golds and platinums, so they don't have any bronzes or silvers. So when they were on pole, they qualified with their best driver, and yeah, that's what kind of where we started the race from. So yeah, it was a good start to the weekend and the race.
So when I turned on, so I have Peacock, so because I didn't want to, I've had Peacock because Indy Lights is on Peacock and IndyCar, so I've always had that subscription. So I was fortunate that that's where they broadcast, and they did the whole race. So my TV had the stream on the whole time. Okay, so I didn't turn it off. But personally, I sat there for the first 14 hours and watched like. Now
Oh wow.
I got up to go to the bathroom, and you're able to
Yeah.
pause it, so I'd pause it, and then I'd catch up if like they cut away to something. But yeah, so and then I would actually be texting Kim during like, what happened? Where is he at? When's he getting back in? And I actually even was texting you during the race, like, when are you jumping in again? And then I remember Kim's texting me. It's like, oh yeah, he's getting in early. I'm like, yeah, he's already in driving. I see that. So it was cool to kind of get like the background insight from you and your lovely bride to be, for that. And even when you race Trans Am and those other series, I like that insight of like, just the analytical minds that we have. And so that was cool to see. And then I thought you when you got in your first stint, I mean, I think you got up to P4 from where you guys were. So, or it might even been P3. But it's, 24 hours. So I was going to take notes and stuff like that. But then I know your car actually had the lead at one point. I don't know if at that point you were driving it or was the other guy, I forget his name.
Yeah, we had an up and down race. I mean, as I said, the strategy and all the things that go into the race is quite interesting. And yeah, we'll kind of letting you know how it all was going as we went. But the original plan, obviously, that we have different drive times and strategies and different drivers getting in at different times. But you adjust that depending on how you're going in the race and what other teams are doing. And yeah, we had a plan for me to get in later in the day, and then I was the second one to jump in the car. So all the plans got changed, and yeah, we had to let everyone know that was trying to watch. At least when I got in the car, we're changing the strategy because of what other teams are doing, and the yellows too. There was quite a lot of yellows.
I was going to say that race had a lot of yellows, and it was, and they're full course yellows, so they're stopping you. Whereas like when we race in the NASA series or any of the other endurance series, when there's a yellow like at Thunder Hill, the wrecker, the ambulance is on the track, and we're still green. So that's always trippy. For those races where we're like racing, like, am I supposed to slow down near the ambulance? It's like, what the fuck?
And IMSA, I'd have to double check, and I don't know if it's like this I think it's like this at most of the races, but the way IMSA does their yellows is so different to every other series. And I had to like research and like go through the whole procedure like 7 or 8 times in my head and just keep thinking about it, because there's like a whole 7 to 8 step procedure that happens when the yellow comes out. And basically the summarized version of the whole thing is that the yellows last for like 20 to 30 minutes, and you have the possibility of getting 2 laps back.
Yeah,
so
you get the wave around,
you can get both of those laps back and be on the lead lap. So especially in IMSA and at the Daytona 24, if you have an issue early in the race, you're not out of the race. And we've seen people in the past be 4 or 5 laps down and
get them back,
still win the race towards the end. So
yeah, I remember you guys were actually a lap down. A yellow came out, and then I was like, all right, there's a yellow. So during the yellows, I was like, all right, let me go get something to eat or grab some food. And then I came back, and at that point they were restacking you guys per each class.
Yeah,
because even at the start of the race, they like, the top class goes first, and then about 30 seconds behind then you guys came in LMP2s, and then the GTD Pros. So they were staggered start, whereas in the NASA were kind of staggered, but literally the LMP2s would be right behind the GTPs, like right behind them, and then you got them diving in on them and trying to pass them. So I like how they staggered this classes based on the speed, obviously. And man, you guys weren't that far off as far as speed wise from, it's the GTP's car, right? That's what they're called.
Yeah,
the
we're
prototypes.
like a few seconds slower than the factory GTP cars, which are like the hybrids and the Porsches, and
they were
the big
flying. So I mean, when they're obviously it took them a while to lap you guys, and they weren't lapping you that often, I was noticing. But with the GTDs, man, they were getting lapped. And you and I've been in those type of cars before in these races, and we see a prototype coming, and at nighttime it's like the eye of God coming at you. And you're like, please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. They just blow your doors off. Whereas like with you, they're not really passing you and blowing your doors off. But in in the lower classes, man, even with you guys on the LMP2s, like you were blowing the doors off of some of the GTD teams, like just going into the kink or the bus stop, they call it, or whatever. It's like, fuck. Like,
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I thought it would be honestly, I thought it'd be worse than what it was, but the way the speeds work, it's actually not too bad because we're not far off the fastest class, which is the GTPs, and generally those cars can only pass us at the end of the straights.
yeah.
So that's like the biggest thing is we're in the middle in terms of speed, but we never have to worry about getting past last minute into a corner where you can't see them coming. You know, if you have a GTP car behind you, we're actually a little bit faster in the slow corners. And so
Yeah.
we have spotters talking to us, like just like NASCAR and IndyCar on the ovals, and they can see the whole track, at least at Daytona. And so they're on the radio telling you like, oh, you know, you got a car looking inside or a GTP car that's coming 5 back, 4 back, and you have a whole kind of commentary of what's going on behind you, which really helps. And then, but obviously, yeah, the GT cars, when you come up on them, you have to be careful because they just don't see you coming sometimes. And as I said, it must be them, they must have the hardest time because they're getting passed all the time, but then also racing their own class. Whereas, at least for us, we only have to worry about getting past at the end of the straights, and then we can worry about everything else. But no, yeah, coming past the GT cars, you got to be careful. And some of those cars are huge. I mean, obviously, we're in like a little lightweight LMP2 car that's super fast, but you know, it's not like a big BMW or, you know, a big Mustang GT. And, you know, if we come into contact with those guys, you know, we're always going to end up second best. So,
Yeah, that you're going to get the short end of that straw. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, actually in the LMP2 class, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than what it was. And it was nothing like the Thunder Hill or what we did together, where there's, 5 or 6 or 7 different classes and different speeds. There's only 3 different speeds. And even though we're in the middle, it's not as bad as it seems. Because I thought, that being in the middle class with the speed would be the worst. But it actually wasn't too bad with traffic. And it was really quite fun. And the spotter helps, so much in those situations. And yeah, we had, generally we had a pretty clean race. Obviously, yeah, we led at times and we were on the lead lap and leading, and then we fell back and nearly got lapped. And then, it was all kind of dependent on strategy and tires because there's a really big tire drop off, and a lot of the teams got out of sequence with each other. So some people would be on new tires, and then some of us would be double stinting tires. And the way the race works is if you can't put new tires on at every single pit stop. So for the whole first half of the race, you have to double stint tires, and when you double stint tires, you're quite a ways off the pace on your second stint. But then you're going against some guys that are off strategy that are putting new tires on against your old tires, and so the whole first half of the race is a bit of a mix-up. And then so yeah, we were leading at points, and then we were almost getting lapped at points, and then we were getting our lap back, and it was all over the place. But ultimately, I had a little run off. I went off the track a little bit, and I got stuck in the grass. And then we came back from that, and then started getting towards the front again. And then unfortunately, we had an air jack break in the pit stop, and we couldn't change tires. So then we had to double stint tires more often than what the other teams are doing, and then we started losing ground at that point. And then eventually the engine started overheating towards the end. So even though we were leading and we're on the lead lap and we're in the mix to win the race, towards the end we started dropping off, and we managed to finish luckily, but I think we finished like 6 or 7 laps down.
Yeah,
and it was just losing time at the end of the race there. So
in those races, it's again a war of attrition, and that goes to the technology and the dependability of these cars. And a lot of people know, as far as the manufacturers, they use these type of races to get that analytical data to make their regular everyday passenger cars like more durable and safe and stuff like that. So the interesting thing though I did see that. I was like, somebody went off. I didn't know who, and then I was trying to see what driver it was, and then I found out it was you. And it's like, what do you think caused that happen? Was it just missing a point, or missing miss a mark or something, or was it traffic, or
I just got caught out on cold tires and the nighttime. I think as being the silver driver, you don't get a lot of time on new tires.
Yeah.
So the first time I got new tires was actually in the race itself.
Oh shit. Okay.
So I wasn't quite expecting the new tire to be so slippery on the first couple of laps, and then also it was on my third stint, my triple stint, and it was I think it was like 5 o'clock in the morning.
It was colder, yeah, for sure, yeah.
It was really cold, and as I said, mentally I was pretty exhausted and tired. having been in the car for the last hour 2 hours.
You didn't have
straight.
You didn't have them put tea bags in your water jug like in
I could, yeah, some
Utah?
caffeine or something to get me through. But so I just I came out of the pits and I slid off the track, and I probably could have kept going, but unfortunately the grass had that kind of mildew and
that dewy stuff. Yeah.
That morning dew in the morning, and I got stuck. So luckily the guys came around and just gave me a little bit of a push, and then I got going again. So I only lost a lap, I think, and just maybe a lap and a half. And we were still in the kind of mix because there was at that point I think there was 7 or 8 hours left.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then unfortunately after that we started having issues with the pit stop and in the air jack and little gremlins with the engine and stuff as well. So yeah, we couldn't really get back into the mix, and from that kind of point onwards, we were lacking with speed, trying to keep the engine cool and all the little things that go with that. So
yeah, and interesting you said all the other stuff, or even the stuff about how you're on new tires, somebody's not on new tires. Like somebody could be a car's much lighter than you because they don't have as much fuel at that time. So for the casual fan watching, if they just see the times like, oh, last lap time, you're like, how the hell is the same class like 10 seconds slower? Whereas like some LMP2 cars were going faster than the GTP cars. And same thing, there was GTD going faster than, well, GTD and GTD Pro is actually the same car. It's just the level of driver. So some of the GTD guys were like, I think they were out there doing some dive bombs and trying to make a point on like the pros or the LMP2s. Whereas, Hinch was riding, James Hinchcliffe. He then would go on the pit box and part of the announcement sometimes. And he actually said something and explained it very well. And I've been saying this to people all the time, even from when we did the 25-hour. I'm like, endurance races, it's like, it's almost, it could be 2 or 3 races technically. It's like, you want to get to halfway. Okay, great, we got to halfway. And then really it's like, okay, let's get to the 20-hour mark and just, back it down, kind of be safe, but not too safe to where you're actually unsafe. And then the last 4 hours of a 24-hour race, that's when the gloves come off, and that's when you're going for it, because that's when it's like, okay, you kind of see the finish line. So he did a really good job with that. And I think a lot of the teams this year, for the most part, obviously there were a lot of yellows, but I think for the most part they did do that, where it's like, okay, let's get to 20 hours and then let's see what we got,
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell, especially towards the end of the race, which teams had the faster cars, and
they were holding back. Yeah, they were holding back. Yeah,
and because there was quite a few teams that we thought didn't look that special in the beginning of the race, and that's when we were leading as well, and it's hard to know where we would have stacked up if everything went our way and we were in the mix at the end of the race. I don't know if we'd had the fastest car or the slowest. It's all like a gamble, and you don't know. And until everyone kind of pulls the gloves off and really starts pushing hard. But there was definitely a few teams that we knew were going to be strong, and for sure they only showed their colors until the last 4 hours. And there's another thing as well that really makes a difference, is the weather and the track temperature. And during the day the track was really hot and the weather was really hot, and the cars that are set up for those conditions do a lot better when the track's like that and it suits them. And then there's obviously cars that do a lot better at nighttime when the track's really cold and cool. And I think we were definitely really quite fast in the night. compared to other teams, and when the track was really cold. But as I said, I don't know. It was kind of like we didn't really get that chance to pull the gloves off and go for it. But there was a lot of teams that were fast at night and then struggled during the day. The race finishes at it starts and finishes around 1:40, 2 o'clock. And, in the middle of the day, it's quite hot at Daytona with the sun and everything. But at night it was freezing. So yeah, it was hard to know where everyone stacked up, but there were certainly teams that set their cars up for the finish of the race. And you could tell the two teams going for it at the end
Rasmussen,
were a lot.
your former teammate at Andretti Autosport and friend, I thought in the beginning, same thing. I'm like, oh man, Rasmussen's team, I don't think they have it. They seem to be off pace. But I think that team, I mean, a lot of teams, your team included, they were running smart races, but they were very methodical. And in the end, they pulled it out. And so that was, that was a good job by him and his team. And, so didn't they have like a 17-year-old kid on that team? Was that one or no?
The 17-year-old guy. He's a NASCAR guy though, and he's super experienced.
Yeah,
they've been a lot of those guys race every weekend, and he did a great job. But
17-year-old kid getting a Rolex. He's going to be rolling into high school probably this week. He's like, bling bling, motherfucker. It's like, it's like what a. I mean, how do you top that? I mean, I guess with an Indy 500 championship or a Daytona 500 championship, but I mean, I don't know. It's one of the hardest races to run, and so I was obviously pulling for you first and foremost and your team because whatever, but obviously because of my longstanding ties to the Andretti organization, and I just think Michael Andretti's one of the best blokes there is in this world, and it was I saw him with the Wayne Taylor Andretti racing outfit, and to see one of their cars go down, and it just obviously you were racing, you didn't see it, but the car just died. Lights turned off, electrical. And I even said, "Oh, that has to be like a wiring harness or something." And then their second car, the same thing kind of happened. It just died. They went out, but they got it to refire, and they got on the podium. So that even kind of tells you, like, hey, even when you think you're out of it, you're really not out of it because there's so much time left. Now, obviously, it happens at hour 22. You're fucked. But I just thought they did a really good job getting that car back up and running. But what is it like when you have, like, you're in your LMP2 car and then you see something happen coming out of a blind corner or something, and then it's like, oh shit! Actually, it happened to you at your first race back at Indy Lights when you were in the Mastermind car. Same thing happened. You came around the corner and you're like, well, oh my god, I could catch him, and it was Rasmussen. His car died, right? And you almost hit him but obviously, Indy Lights, that's one thing, and it was daytime. What's it like in the nighttime when you come around a bend and there's a car there and their lights are off and they're dead? Like, it's...
You just have to be mentally focused so much and just be aware. But as I said, it's hard. It caught me out because, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you're getting tired, and when you're tired, you make little mistakes here and there. But you have to... Luckily, we kept it pretty clean, and there were a lot of other cars around us that got, destroyed even early in the race. I think there's 13, 14 LMP2s, and by the second or third hour, we had lost, 3 or 4 of them completely totaled and crashed, and they were out of the whole race, and most of the drivers in those teams never even got to race at all, or drive the car. So yeah, you just have to be prepared. And as I said, it's hard because you're mentally drained and tired, and especially in those long races. And the one thing that kind of surprised me as well is, obviously we raced the 25 hours of Thunder Hill together.
Yes.
And the cars we were driving are fast, but they're not super physical. And it's quite cold because it's in California and the end of the year, and the temperatures are quite low. But in our cars, I got out of the first stint in the heat of the day. I think it was like, towards the late afternoon. And I'm like, oh man, I've done one stint, or I did a double stint, but I've done a double stint, and I've got three or four more of those to go, and I'm sweating and I'm trying to get all my fluids back in, and it feels like I just ran, like a marathon. So
yeah, Thunderhill wasn't. Our car was. It was I call it a 4-cylinder shit box, right?
yeah,
But we made fuel. And we were like the little engine that could, and we got second. Yeah. So it was funny because like same thing, like we were faster in the corners and than the other cars. Like down the straightaway, they were just killing us, right? And then in the corners, we were doing that. But interesting enough, you said that. Remember, I don't know if you remember this because you could have been driving or sleeping or whatever. Actually, none of us really slept. He's like, oh, yeah, you got the bus of sleeping. There was the race team that was set up next to us in the pit box, okay? They built this elaborate fucking house almost with plywood and everything, and literally they crashed out in the first lap. And so I'm doing my stint. I come back. They're gone. Like the hauler's gone. Everything's gone. I'm like, so – on the start of the 24-hour Daytona, during this, you guys are coming to the green, right? And then you see there was a car, obviously you wouldn't know this, there was a car that had to start in the pits, and I was like, oh, man. And then there was other cars that just like had to retire within the first 10 minutes. So you do all this work, all this preparation, spend all this money, have all these sponsors, and you feel like, honestly, yeah, they're competitors, but, man, I don't want to win that way, having like my competitor parked. I'd rather beat him on the track, and so will you. And it's like, because like as a driver and even being team principal and stuff, you just get gutted for the other people. Now, like with 2 hours left and they retire and you're facing for the win, it's like, okay, that's cool, but not that early, man. And I felt gutted for all the drivers, man. It's like you did that, like if that happened to you guys in 2 hours and you hadn't yet done your stint, I know you would have been one pissed off bloke.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sucks. And I think that, obviously it really sucks and you feel bad for those teams, and that's not the way you want to win. But I think that it all adds to the prestige of winning the race, and it makes the race that much more special. I think that's why those 24-hour races around the world become so iconic. You got the 24 hours of Le Mans, 24 hours of Daytona, and the 25 hours of Thunder Hills, even, pretty up there in terms of notoriety. But it just, obviously it's a grueling race and there's such heartbreak. But when you have those such low moments, it makes the highs so much higher. So, if you're one of those guys that, crashed out in the first hour, but you come back the next year and win, it just makes it so sweet and so much better. And you can tell there's a lot of camaraderie between the teams, and even though they're all competitors, they help each other out in certain scenarios where both teams are going to benefit. Especially in the pit stops, we're pitting together with some of the GT teams, and obviously if they're leading and our car's not doing so well, we'll give priority to them in the pits, and vice versa. They'll give priority to us in the pits if we're doing really well or having issues. And I think at the end of the day, it just makes the race so much more special. And if you're, as I said, if you have the lows of the lows, it makes the highs, that much more sweeter.
Same thing like Indy 500, man. You put all the preparation into the whole month of May, or actually some drivers do for the whole year, and then you get that shot, and if it doesn't go well, it's like you're just like, look at the emotion that Joseph Newgarden had, and interestingly enough, what a year for him. And I know he's a good mate of yours as well. And, he goes out, wins the Indy 500, was trying to do that his whole life, and just that emotion and emotionally draining. He jumps into the crowd, and then now he wins a Rolex. And actually the captain, Roger Penske, didn't even want him to be like, Roger wants his drivers where he wants his drivers, and he's the boss. He's got the money. So he really didn't even want Newgarden to be in that race. And Newgarden's just like, I'm here to have fun, and he wins a fucking Rolex, and like, kudos to him and that team. That was and they hadn't won. You think you hear the name Penske and you think, oh, they win everything, but they hadn't won a Daytona 24 in like 30, 40 years or something like that. It's been a long time. So I like stories like that. It's good for motorsports. And then obviously we're gonna wrap this up, but I want to, like, what are your plans? Yeah, you're going to be at the AO racing team this year, right? Racing a lot of the IMSA races, and then will you be doing any SST this year, or any other type of forms of racing? And yeah. So what's the plans for Matthew Brabham this year?
Yeah. So I still have obviously a few IMSA races left. The next one for us in the endurance stuff, the LMP2 stuff, is the 12 hours of Sebring. So I'm really looking to that. That's coming up in the next month. And then
how many drivers will you have in that car? 4 or 3 or
just 3? So it'll be me, Paul, and PJ.
Okay.
So 3 of us race at Daytona, but Alex won't be with us because they need a bronze, silver, gold combination. It'll be us 3 for the rest of the year in the enduros, and then there's 1 or 2 races where just Paul and PJ will race that I'll miss out on.
The smaller, they're like what
which are just hour races.
The sprint races.
Yeah. And then in terms of other stuff, I'll be probably doing the Stadium Super Trucks again.
Nice.
I'm just
stay out of my way. Stay out of my way.
Race against you, and
I love when you get behind me because I know a big push is coming. A big push is coming. And so you're the only 3-time champion. So in Stadium Super Trucks, obviously we have 3 now 2-time champions. So we had the first 2-time champion was Robbie Gordon, obviously. Then Sheldon Creed, who's interesting enough will be a guest on the podcast coming up. And then Gavin Harlan just secured he did a 2-time. So obviously Sheldon's not coming back, but what's your mindset going into a season when you have these other capable drivers like Robbie and Gavin, and hey, each of them are trying to get that 3-time thing where you hold the record, and actually Robbie, yourself, and me are the top 3 in all-time starts in SST, so that's also another prestigious accolade, because people don't realize how grueling. Like, yeah, you said the 24-hour race, it's so hot and it's physical, and you felt like you ran a marathon, but people don't realize that our 30-minute races in SST fucking takes a toll on you. Like, you're wiped out, man. So what are you looking forward to in the 2024 Stadium Super Truck Series season?
Yeah, really, I just hope we have more races. That's obviously Robbie's been quite busy with the UTV stuff, so I just hope we get some more races, and I can and we can have more fun together racing on track, because we only did a couple of races last year.
4. We only did 4. Yeah.
What's planned for this year, but I just hope we get more races, and obviously it's when we do race, it's just carnage, and it's all out. A 30-minute showdown. So obviously we're never pacing ourselves like we are in the endurance races, waiting for the last couple of hours. It's just all go, and that's what makes it so exciting and fun. And it's the most fun that I have in a race car is with the Stadium Super Trucks, just because it is what it is, and it's so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'll probably do some Trans Am races as well.
Nice. You guys, man, that Jimweed car the past couple of years, you guys, what a great team. Was it Chris Dyson? And you and him, man, you guys get together, and you guys, well, Justin Marks, I mean, he was a capable competitor. He was a very capable competitor for you guys. He gave you guys a run of money, but man, when you and Chris work together, I didn't see a team beating you guys. If you guys really work together, and sometimes maybe he would leave you out there, and then it was like, okay, you got gobbled up. But if he didn't leave his wingman, like, you guys were on it with that team.
Yeah, we had a lot of success, and it sounds like it's going to be the same kind of deal this year. So it's getting more competitive in that series too. In the beginning, we kind of were the dominant ones, and now there's quite a few
starting
teams
to come
that
up,
have a lot of power behind them. Obviously the Trackhouse racing that comes from the NASCAR side with Justin Marks and him racing. He brings all his guys over from NASCAR, and it's a super competitive team, and they're really hard to beat. So it's kind of like a clash of the Titans at the moment, and they're all coming back for this year. So that's going to be super exciting, and we'll see how that all kind of shakes out too. But it's always a lot of fun racing in that series, and then who knows? I'm always trying to get back in the open wheel side and working on the IndyCar stuff. So obviously I did a few races with Juncos at the end of last year, and
yeah, you did really good with that team. I mean, just jumping in, you roll out of bed and you're fast, so.
Yeah, I'm available, and hopefully, who knows what happens with some of those guys if I end up replacing some or jumping in with some of the teams towards the end of the year with that as well.
We talk privately, and I was talking to Stephen Wilson a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't understand some of these IndyCar teams. And I'm going to get to we're going to wrap up with one last point, the F1 debacle that just happened with Andretti. I'm going to ask you your thoughts on that. But this is, to me, it's the same thing. Why would an IndyCar team not want a driver with your capabilities and, no offense, your last name? Like, there's names in racing across all of global motorsports that if you can put that name and they're a very capable driver, and personally, my feelings on this. I know you would be a top 10 competitive driver in the IndyCar series if you had a full-time spot with a competitive team. Now, you would want names like Andretti, Brabham, Ray Hall. Like these names in racing are like Schumacher. These are the names that you would want because the history and the lineage of even the fans. Like there's fans, as when you go to Indy 500s, like my family's had these season tickets for 80 fucking years. Like what? Same fucking seats. Like, yeah, they maybe have changed the bench or so. It just it's man, I'm disappointed in that. The teams or people are watching out there. It's like, this is one guy that deserves a shot at a full-time drive. And I think if he got it, cause and I don't want to knock any drivers but they're just, I guess it's nice to have a dad that's a billionaire. So, it's just like unfortunate. And, I wish you all the best. And I'm always praying that you get a full-time job in this series because I've seen you race V8 supercars, just jump in and be fast. And those are scary fast. Like at Gold Coast, you're sitting there and you're hitting a curb and you're on two wheels at 180 miles an hour. People don't understand how hard that takes. And then they wonder, like, how does Shane Van Gisbergen come over here and win a NASCAR race? Get in a V8 supercar. Matty Brabham's done it. Matty Brabham raced the Indy car. Matty Brabham raced the LMP2 car. He could easily go into a GTP car, the prototypes. Like fucking stadium super trucks, jumping buses. It's like whatever we fucking need to do. So with that, one, I want you to touch on that. And then also want you to touch on, I was disappointed by F1 because they're saying like, well, we don't think Andretti is going to be competitive. And you and I know from knowing Michael Andretti and the organization he puts out with, like within 3 years, his Andretti Walkinshaw team won a championship down in V8 supercars. And, he's always finding ways to get better. So, I mean, competitive to me in F1 is a top 10. Do you get points, right? And to tell me that within 2-3 years that an Andretti team is not consistently fighting for points and the points equals money, that's bullshit, okay? And even when Michael was in F1, he was teammates with Senna. Okay, Senna's getting on the podium. He's winning. They purposely fucked his car up, and then I think at the last race or something, they kind of switched cars. Senna did it as a favor to him, and Michael got on the podium. He left F1 as a podium. So, as a driver, he was competitive, if he got the right equipment. But for some reason, the F1 people, and obviously your grandfather raced, in F1 and a 3-time world champion. I just think they're getting in the way of themselves, and the politics is crazy because, one, why wouldn't they want females into their series if they're capable? You don't want to, somebody, but there has to be some out there that can race in F1. And two, having a name like an iconic name like Andretti, and obviously the Brabham, like the last actually female to race in F1, what car she drove? A Brabham, 1992. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome. But yeah, as I said, motor racing is it's a difficult sport to be a part of because it's not not always the fastest driver gets the opportunities, and I didn't realize this as well. But obviously, not all the best teams get the best get the opportunities either. It looks like with all the F1 stuff and Michael and the Andretti's. Obviously, have been on the sidelines of IndyCar, and that's kind of my goal still, is to be in the Indy 500 and win the Indy 500, because that's almost the only thing that my family hasn't won. Obviously I'm doing other stuff with IMSA, and I'd love to win the Daytona 24-hour race, but that's all things that people in my family have already won. So obviously it's cool, but I want to add my own history. So in terms of answering your question on my side, I'm still pushing for all the IndyCar stuff and trying to get into the Indy 500 and try and win that race. And it all comes down to politics, unfortunately, sometimes. But that's every sport that is where money's involved. That's kind of where sometimes, especially in racing, money can count for more than talent and ability. And it's the same in F1, where I strongly disagree with the statements that they released. And, it's kind of with that whole thing. I mean, I just think that, it was kind of like a lame excuse. And, obviously they have a whole PR plan of how they're going to release it. And, there's been other stories that have come out recently that, I think are a little bit of a distraction from all that stuff. But it's crazy to me. I think F1 has changed because, it wasn't only a few years ago that you could have a brand new team that could run in the series, no questions asked, that would be slower than an F2 car. There was teams like, I'm not going to name any names, but
Haas. No, I'm just kidding.
There's been a history of teams over the last 10, 20 years that have competed in Formula One that have designed and built a car that has been slower than an F2 car. You know what I mean? So, what's stopping an F2 team from just running a Formula One car? And the answer is money. But I think with I think F1's kind of changed. And as I said, I would have to really research the rules and how the rules have affected things. But to me, there's obviously a limit now on the teams that can run in the series. And it sounds like there's a union between all the team members and the team owners that have quite a lot of say in what happens. And for whatever reason, obviously with the Drive to Survive and all other factors, Formula One's become a lot more popular recently. And, the money that's been generated by it has all increased. But all the teams, I feel like, are getting greedy now because, obviously, to me, what it comes down to is they just don't want to share the pie. And if Michael Andretti comes in with his team, he's ultimately going to be taking a slice of the pie. And other teams that are down the back, as I said, I'm not going to mention any names, but the teams that are struggling right now are going to get even less money because Andretti's going to take a big portion of that money, and they're going to struggle even more. And, I don't think by looking at Michael and how he runs teams and the people that are backing him, he's got GM, the biggest car manufacturer in the world, that wants to join the grid with him. His problem is not going to be money.
They got plenty of money, that's for sure. And typically you would think that's the hardest part. The barrier to entry to a race team is like, hey, do you have the hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars to run this? And check, got it. But I think that's what they're scared of, knowing that. But because watch this. A few years ago, I think they were going to buy I don't even know how to pronounce these names, man. I'm not educated. Sauber, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And or AlphaTauri, one of those. So it would be okay if he went in and bought one of those teams, right? An existing team, which are not competitive. So that's okay. So but they can't do a new team. And to me, I just think that politics is crazy. But I think the people, like, I understand what you're saying with saying, hey, they're going to get less of the pie. But to me, this is totally, they're looking short-sighted, whereas they're diminishing the power of one of the most famous and global brands in all of auto racing. Because, like, man, you can get pulled over by a cop tomorrow and literally the cop will come up to you and go, what do you think you are, Mario Andretti? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
from the Cars movies and all that. So maybe adding Michael Andretti and the Andretti Autosport, well, now Andretti Global and Mario Andretti, and, that, think about the American fan base. I mean, he's huge in Australia. Like, I remember going in for a pizza place in Australia, I walked in, and then there's Michael Andretti. It was on the Gold Coast where you grew up, and I'm like, there's photos of Michael Andretti and John Andretti because John Andretti won at Gold Coast, and and obviously Michael did, and I'm like looking like, what the hell? So I think. I think adding them will grow. I think more money will come in, so I don't think it'll be less. I really don't think so.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know how it all works, and I mean the way the political structure of the whole of Formula One has changed in recent years. But I think what it comes down to is that Liberty and the owners of F1. I don't see any reason why they would be against the team or Andretti joining. There's no reason. I think it adds to their brand. It adds to their.
Yep.
But I don't know if it's their say, because, as I said, I think the way it works, at least from what I've heard, is that, and without doing too much research, is that the teams themselves are the ones that make the ultimate decision and have a lot of pull, and they're the ones that are blocking it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a completely one-sided thing where all the race teams that are currently competing are all saying, no, we don't want the Andrettis, because obviously there's a lot of conflicting interests there. But then the FIA have always been behind Andretti, and maybe also F1 itself wants them in the series, but the ultimate factor that's blocking it all is not actually the series or the FIA, it's actually just the teams themselves.
Well, as I said, I absolutely think Mercedes will, and more specifically Toto Wolff, he's come out publicly and was like, nope, don't want them. They can't do nothing for us. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? Like, you're stupid if you think that. Like, you're just stupid if you think that. And then Toto Wolff. But all right, I appreciate your thoughts on that. And only 3 people watch this podcast, so you're not going to get in trouble for your thoughts. I'm just kidding.
No, but I agree. I think it's crazy. I mean, obviously, I'm super close to Michael and the family, and I just hope that they get what they deserve, what they're pushing for, because they're driven and they can do a good job, and everyone knows that, and you can see that online.
Oh yeah.
A 99% of the people are in support of Michael and trying to do what he's doing. So hopefully it all works out in the end. But as I said, motor racing is a tough business, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, but their whole organization from top to bottom, like their marketing department, their video department, their social media, just the all the business development guys behind the scenes, like the whole team is champions, the whole team. And that you go in there and, you can go in there tomorrow and they would be like, hey, Matty, come here, sit down, watch some video, telemetry. They're always there to help you. So, all right, Matty, thanks for coming on board at the last minute and everything like that. I know you're traveling and everything like that. I think you got like a plane engine behind you in the photo. That looks cool as fuck.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not really my fault.
I know. No, exactly. And say hello to your beautiful fiance, Kimberly, and my dear little buddy, Brumby Brabham.
Will do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, mate. Be good.